All right, Stovetop Saturday. You know what the deal is. If you want to introduce yourself, bro, we'll jump right into it.
Hey, my name is David. I'm from a band called Nothing If Not.
Hiding behind a sequence of topics, an algorithm of words. Biding my time till I have to stop it. Some conversations, isolation, self-perpetuating and unforgiving. 'Cause the motivation will join the population after all of this is absurd.
We do prog rock. We just released our first single, and yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you. Especially because I checked out your music and it's very diverse. Um, and it was interesting to cover. I definitely wanted to cover it. So let's start from the beginning. Like where did your musical journey start for you?
So I first got into songwriting I mean, really a lot about 8 years ago, really. And I started on the acoustic, really just playing folk songs, and then played shows for about five years just by myself. And after a while, I finally got around to getting a band, and we kind of just turned my folk songs into the prog rock songs they are now.
Fair enough. Um, so how long have you been together as a group then?
About 2 years now. We've been shifting in and out of with players in the band. So like on the record, you'll hear some different players than what we're like touring with now because I think one of the cons of like getting so many diverse players is they all want to go in many different directions musically.
Hmm.
So like you'll hear our drummer for the record, his name's Casey, great drummer, but he has a metal band, so he's went off and now he's playing with his metal band, Provoked, and now we're playing with a new drummer but the same guitarist.
Okay. Yeah, and it can definitely be a little bit difficult. Like, some people might have the different ideology or, some people might have more drive than others. Like I want to make it, but I don't want to do this full time and, put my blood, sweat, and tears into it. Um, but, like I can relate to it 100%. So like where did the group name originate from?
So the group was kind of like, like all different directions of where I was musically kind of just came together when I was trying to record this album. My lead guitarist Holden, I met him at open mic. And he was, playing some John Mayer tunes, and I never heard, licks that he was pulling out. It really impressed me, so I went up to him, and right off the bat we just started playing together. And I remember I was doing like when I was playing an open mic before we really started, talking about actually playing together. He took out his guitar and just started playing on top of it. And like as soon as I was up there like and he was just off the bat like hearing and you've heard the songs like we change a lot, and he just picked up and we just kind of started meshing just with him off stage, and I was like, get on stage, let's start this. And it started right there, and then our bassist I used to be in a hard rock band, Audio Discrepancies. Casey I met a few times. I think the main time that I was really like I saw him play at a show for another band, Jansen, really, really blew me away. So I just kind of, put them all together, and we just started writing the album as soon as we were able to and got the budget for it.
Fair, fair. Where are you guys located out of?
So I live in Anderson right now. Our drummer that's playing with us currently is an indie, Marcus. And Holden is living around Muncie, just like a smaller town around Muncie.
And is that in the US?
Yeah, it's in Indiana.
Okay, yeah, because I'm Canadian. So what's the music scene there?
I mean, it's really it's really underground. Most of what we've been working with, every once in a while we'll play it like venues like the Melody Inn. It's a cool venue in Indy. But most of the time you'll see us at like house shows and like it's very DIY in Indiana, really. You'll see that the artists are kind of, having to facilitate like most of the scene, really. So you'll see it very self-driven
So it
by
sounds pretty smaller area there. Hey, it's not like a big city or anything like that.
yeah.
It makes sense. Um, so like like we kind of talked earlier about your guys' sound. Like yeah, it's quite unique. How would you personally describe your sound, your guys' sound?
Um, I mean, it's tough. Like you heard the first single, like we kind of just go from blues to like orchestral metal almost at the very end, like I'd really the term I usually say is just progressive, because I don't like to kind of box us in because if you the record that's coming out, you're gonna hear everything from, like traditional jazz to like um to ethereal folk to psych rock, like we kind of just wherever the song takes us, we just kind of, blend in with that genre.
Fair, fair. Now, like your your knowledge with music is quite it's very out there. Like, how long have you been around it? Like, because you say that you've been playing music for only 8 years, but like your knowledge of music for only 8 years, just if if that's how long you've been like knowledging music for 8 years, I'm baffled.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. I mean, 8 years is how long I've kind of been, partaking, like playing and like being in the scene actively. But I've always really been interested in music. My grandpa, he's a jazz musician, and my grandma as well. They were, playing together for a while, and I think I've always been around music. So but like that being said, like I know a lot about certain areas of it, but you asked me about theory. That's why I surround myself with a band that's like that knows what they're doing with theory, is because I kind of, I'll play in weird time signatures, but I won't know what I'm doing until like I look and I'm like, what's that? And my guitarist will be like, I think that's 13/8, dude. Like, so like we'll I think that it shows in certain areas, that I've been around for shorter than other musicians, but yeah, I think I do have my strengths just because of, where I've been brought up.
100%. I do agree because like, you like I got a hip hop background and stuff like that. And for the longest time, I didn't even know how to count bars. Like I could write the verses and have the transitions without knowing that I'm counting the bars, but I didn't know how to count bars. I didn't know any of that. I just wrote the music and was just like, you know what I mean? Um,
Completely get that. It's crazy how natural music really is, like 4/4 is like kind of implicit in the way that we, like we experience a lot of rhythm, like a lot. I remember I was playing with somebody that was just picking up the instrument, and time signature wasn't even something that, they've ever heard, but like they naturally always played in 4/4, like it's kind of that it's kind of that. And that being said, there's like a lot of older beats. Like you'll hear like a lot of really interesting, um, traditional African beats that were like played a long time ago, and they'll be a lot more intricate in time signature. But it's like, I think rhythm is natural to us as humans. And like same thing with, keys and melody. It's just like I think music is something that is very just distinctly human.
100%. Like, I've heard instrumentals because a lot of instrumentals in hip hop and rap, a lot of them are 4/8, right? So when I heard a 4/4 track, it threw me off because I'm naturally trying to write for a 4/4/8, and I'm like
Mm.
completely thrown off, not understanding. I'm like, this beat's off beat. I'm like, this whoever made this song is an idiot. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, like little do I know that I'm the uneducated one. um, so what was the first song that you learned to play, especially like with your family having a musical background and stuff like that? What was the first song that you learned to play?
Well, it's I I th that's That's a let me think. I think the first song I really learned to play was Exit Music by Radiohead. Um, at least it was the first song I tried to play and then played wrong for a long time. But like it was one of those songs you heard and you're like, oh, this sounds simple. So like I was really into playing Radiohead songs, Nick Drake, Pink Floyd, kind of a mix of, I guess, gothic psych folk area.
Almost the starting of where your genre has become to be now.
Pretty
And
much,
that
yeah.
makes sense. Um, this is my favorite question on the stovetop. I ask every artist this. This is almost honestly, this has got to be a trademark question. If you could work with any artist of any genre, dead or alive, who would it be?
Hmm. Um, ooh, okay, this I'd have to say Nick Drake. Nick Drake. One of my biggest influences. Folk from. Have you heard of Nick Drake? He's like
No.
has ethereal folk music. He's kind of where I developed. He inspired a lot of the way that I play because if you see me live, like I've never play with a pick. I'm always playing finger style. Like his chordings. He's really, changed the way that I've thought about music. So, I'd be, oh man, not even a top three. It's got to be, oh,
Hey,
that's
if
tough.
you got multiple artists, and by all means, man.
Jeff Buckley, Nick Drake, Pink Floyd.
Now, could you imagine if we put all that together and made one big collab?
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. The world would be ready.
So, like, I'm not experienced with instruments themselves, right? Like, especially with me expanding with the stovetop, I'm learning as I ask you, the artist, questions as well. Is there a different sound when you use a pick versus like finger picking?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There is a huge like sound that difference in sound. Like there's a lot more attack with a pick. The technique is very different because when you're working with fingers, you're not like having to work with alternating, picking patterns. You kind of like you have more flexibility. At least I do. It might just be because I'm so used to finger picking that like I don't know how much flexibility you can have with a pick. I've seen people use a pick with two fingers and use their other two fingers, but it's just honestly in the softness of it, you can really hear it. Like let's see, Chet Atkins. He's a jazz fingerstyle guitarist. If you were to hear his guitar right next to a guitarist like, I mean, Joe Pass, when he's using a pick, you can hear the difference there. It's it sounds like there's more attack. It's more pronounced rather than, a rounder sound.
Fair. So like being a finger pick guitarist, do you got build callus with that? Like, like yeah, like if you're
Yeah.
starting like and starting to learn how to finger pick, you're like do your fingers at you like
Most of it, so most of the callousing you're doing when you're playing guitars.
Isolation, self-perpetuated and unforgiving motivation, join the population after all of this inside.
Guitar is going to be from the left hand because you're pushing down those strings, so like most of it's going to be with the left hand, but yeah, I think a lot of it, and this is going to be a gross little part about, this is the gross part about guitar that like guitarists don't talk about. You'll see if somebody's a fingerstyle guitarist, if you look at their under their strings and you see dead skin, or like you'll see it, so like you kind of shed skin off your fingers. And so um it's like it is technically, callousing, but it's also just kind of getting used to, I don't know, getting used to giving some of yourself to the instrument in a way.
so I wonder if like, that whole saying of like, like I'm shredding on my guitar. Like I wonder if that's where that whole thing came from. Like I'm shredding my fingers.
Yeah, I mean, I say I'm shedding on my guitar, so
Maybe that's where maybe somebody was like, "Oh, I'm shedding," and somebody was that was half deaf was like, "I'm shredding," and then it stuck.
I could see that being a thing.
Who knows, man? Telephone game, right?
Yeah.
Um, so what was your first performance like? Like, how did you feel when you first performed? Did you have any anxiety? Did you feel like a rock star? Like,
I think my first performance, like I was in a theater and all that earlier on, so like and like choir and stuff, so I was kind of desensitized to like performing on stage. But it is like it's different because I was with a hard rock band before I really performed my solo stuff. And so like I was kind of like singing on top of their music. Where like I was performing my songs, but it was like it felt more like I was being performative. Whereas when I would like first performed my songs, that's when I started getting really anxious. Like you'll see a difference in like when I'm up there singing my songs because they're a lot more personal. It's kind of like it feels like I'm being more vulnerable. So like I think there is more anxiety now than there was when I started out.
and even saying that, like sharing the stage with a group, um, like I've never thought about it until now, but like, yeah, when I was up by myself, like I didn't do a lot of performing, you know. I'm a rapper, I'm not a performer, if that makes sense. Um, but when I was up by myself, I was very awkward. I didn't, you know what I mean? But when I was up with the group, like we felt like rock stars. You know what I mean? We brought all the homies up. We brought the house down. But when I was up by myself, I felt like you just said, like, like you're vulnerable because all eyes are on you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm the center of attention. Yeah, right?
And when you're with the group, question for you, like when you were with your group, what kind of art were you performing? Were you performing something you made as the group, like the lyrics coming from, like the collective, or were they
Oh
like your
yeah.
lyrics?
100%. Yeah, like we would sit in the studio together and we would write the songs together. We would write it, record it. You know what I mean? Like everything was done together. We would get together every day. We would get together every day. We'd have a smoke sesh. We'd get write some music, and then like that we did it every day, weekly. Like that was our routine, man.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, that dynamic right there, that's, that does a lot that when it translates on stage, like it feels like you're performing like a piece of art that like everybody, like when it's the lyric, like the music, yes, like I did the lyrics when I was with Audio Discrepancies, but a lot of it was kind of writing to what they were playing.
Mhm.
Whereas when I'm doing my stuff now, like yes, I wrote instruments with the band, but the songs themselves have kind of been like some of these songs I've been playing for 8 years, and like the lyrics are very much like um I don't know, it feels like I'm being a lot more, I'm showing a lot more of like myself with, like this music we're doing now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, fair enough. So kind of like, an odd way of going about this, but kind of being like exposing yourself to the public. That sounded bad. How do you feel the way that social media connects you with the listeners?
I so I think that social media is important. We're living in an age where, like this is how most people kind of communicate what they're listening to, what they're watching, what they, like what they feel. Um, I think in terms of social media, this is it's a struggle with the artist right now, and you'll hear a lot of people say this, that like, I just want to make art.
Hmm.
Like I just want to make my music, and I just wish people would like, I wish there'd just be a little like antenna where like people would just, like walk by and then they hear the music and they're like, I like this. But I have been working more on social media. I think that, I mean, for instance, this interview right now is like, this is kind of the stuff that more artists need to do because it's more natural. We're just kind of having a conversation about it. Whereas a lot of the time with social media, it feels like you're just kind of like, hey, POV, you just found a new indie artist, like that.
Exactly.
It feels like there's a conflict between exposure and branding.
Well, and when I do this, I want the listeners to, potential fans here in Canada, obviously there's a slim chance that they can potentially meet you. Now, there's not no chance, but there's a slim chance they can potentially meet you. So I'm giving them the chance to hear your story, how you built yourself. But like I said, you're not applying for a job. I
Yeah.
don't want it being like, yes, I have a script, because if I didn't have a script, we would just be talking nonsense and I would look very unprofessional. I already do that enough in some of the other episodes. If you haven't checked that out, y'all can go and check that out.
I've seen some of the interviews. I've always enjoyed them.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So kind of, speaking on like how social media connects you with the listeners, what do you think about artists using AI?
Oh. Okay, so like I think that um AI and art, they don't they don't mesh together. I don't think that if art was made by AI, it's art. I really
Mm-hmm.
don't. I think that it's a remix of everything that's been put into the system. Like um it's really just an interpretation of art. Like the same way if you were to um if it's just I think art is a distinctly human feature. Like we were talking about earlier, like rhythm is something we naturally feel. We speak to a metronome almost. We
Mm-hmm.
have rhythm in the way that we communicate. We have, like every chord is like communicating an emotion. Like you hear a minor chord and it's a more melancholy emotion. You hear a major chord and it's more uplifting. Sometimes it gets really gray in between when you're using, augmented chords, which I know like but like augmented chord is more just like like you're graying the emotion. I feel like it's less
Right.
black and white. And so whenever you're asking an AI to create something like that, sure, it can make this song that kind of in that kind of like tries to mimic an emotion, and lyrics that try to mimic a story, but it hasn't experienced that. It hasn't experienced that story. It hasn't felt that emotion. So when you listen to AI music, it could be the most technically advanced thing in the world that somebody can't play, but you're not feeling what it's playing. And that in of itself disqualifies it for the term art.
I agree. I agree. Like if you're utilizing it as a tool in some certain ways and degrees, like it can be used as a tool. Using it as an artistic tool, as a musician, hell no. Hell no. There's a line in the sand. You know what I mean? If you're using it to create your cover photos and all that stuff, it's become quite common. You know, all the power to you. To be honest, it saves you a whole lot of hours and it saves you a whole lot of money having to try to pay somebody to do it for you, right? It's a tool. But when you're cheating and basically going to a computer and saying, make my song for me,
Mhm.
like, you know what I mean? I always even thought that ghostwriting was cheating, having a ghostwriter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that to a degree, even ghostwriting, I mean, ghostwriting changes what you're doing as an artist. I think that, like when you find out that some of these artists have ghostwriters, they're moreover just performers. They're not artists.
Right.
Like that's my take is like if you have ghostwriters making your art, you're not the artist. You're the performer.
Yeah,
So like the when it comes to AI, that's not only a ghost writer, it's your performer as well. You are just kind of entering a prompt. You're doing the same thing that somebody's like, make an AI picture of a mosaic of me, like on a throne with a crown, like it's just like you're a consumer. You're not an artist, you're a consumer.
I agree. I agree 100%. My last question for the episode before we shut this down. What's your end goals for music, man? Where do you want to go with it?
I really just want to find an audience that feels what the art is like conveying. Really, I want my art to find, its place in the world and I want to keep making it. Like as an artist, I think we at our core just want to communicate with people, like and we want, you know, that's really all I'm, like wanting at the end of this is like this album to find people that resonate with it. And like same with music in the future.
Hell yeah, and like that's what I like about the Stovetop, man. My end goal really is to get you one more like, one more follower, one more positive comment, preferably. We all got haters, but preferably a positive comment. Um, like that at the end of the day, that's my goal. If I get you one more view, one more comment, one more like, I feel like I did my job here on the Stovetop. Like we're not here to be Hollywood. We're not here to be like all those other Hollywood style podcasts. Even if, fingers crossed, even if we did um make it someday to a level, to a certain level, how whatever that looks like. Um, I want to keep it the way that this is. I want to make it feel like the artists are at home because originally, honestly, if it wasn't for you and the other artists that I've sat down with, I won't have a stovetop to do. Right. So it honestly, it's a thank you to you and all the other artists that have sat down with me in past and future, because if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have it.
I mean, hey, you're welcome. I mean, at the same time, like I really want to say thank you. It really is important for people to have, platforms like this to, give artists a place to, like speak, a place to kind of, show more about themselves and their art. So I appreciate you and your platform as well.
100%, man. Well, thank you. Well, that's what it is. Stovetop Saturday. Y'all know what it is.